Hello and welcome to National Mortgage Professionals webinar entitled How to Make a Niche Market Out of 7.3 Million Boomerang Buyers. Our presenters today are Jim McMahon, who is a loan originator in Georgia, Darren Bloomquist, who is the Vice President of Realty Track, Terry Clemens, who is the Executive Director of the National Consumer Reporting Association, and Pam Marin, a loan originator in Tampa Bay, Florida.
Thank you, Beverly. Realty Track, the leading provider of comprehensive housing data and analytics, has found that there will be 7.3 million Boomerang buyers who will have the ability to return to the housing market over the next 8 years. We see a need in the marketplace to assist these borrowers, and the website housingcrisisstories.com is the result of a collaboration with key partners within the real estate and mortgage industry.
housingcrisisstories.com. It was created to provide information and guidance to two groups of borrowers and the loan originators that can assist them with the mortgage process. The two groups of borrowers are Boomerang buyers and distressed homeowners. To help clarify, Boomerang buyers are borrowers who had a short sale or foreclosure in the past and are now eligible to re-enter the housing market. Distressed homeowners are those who may need to move out or choose to stay in an underwater home. We have chosen to invest our time and energy into creating a website to provide information to help borrowers and loan originators effectively navigate this complex financing process. I'd like to introduce to you Darren Bloomquist, Vice President of Realty Track, who will explain the demographics of this borrower population and what effect they will have on the housing industry as they re-enter the marketplace. Darren?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Pam, for putting this all together. I think this is a really important issue, and we look at the data, and I'm excited to hear about the other side of things, those stories that are behind the data. We looked at the end of 2014, basically last month, we said, okay, we're really over 7 years out from the beginning of the foreclosure crisis, which we saw rising up and starting back in 2007. And we know, and you guys will get into this, that folks can qualify potentially after a foreclosure in less than 7 years, but we know that 7 years is the maximum. And so we said, if those people who lost their home to foreclosure or to short sale back in 2007, they're definitely in the clear in 2015 to buy a home again, assuming they didn't have any other credit issues. So we looked at that, and not just 2015, but then going forward, corresponding to basically the 7 years of the foreclosure crisis, over the next 7 to 8 years, how many of these Boomerang buyers will potentially be coming back and be qualified, have the opportunity to buy. And actually it starts out, 2015, the numbers are not overwhelming, but over the next few years, 16, 17, 18, 19, we're seeing more than 1 million potential Boomerang buyers a year. And if we look at the next slide, we can see where the hot spots are for these potential Boomerang buyers. They're probably not any big surprises because the hot spots for Boomerang buyers in terms of sheer numbers of these corresponds to the hot spots of the foreclosure crisis and the housing crisis, where we saw a lot of foreclosures and short sales. The size of the bubble here is just the sheer number of potential Boomerang buyers, and the color of the bubble has to do with the percentage of total housing units that represents. So a place like Las Vegas there, you see, is both a pretty big sized bubble as well as very dark, and it's got the highest percentage of any market in terms of the percentage of people who lost their homes to foreclosure or short sale between 2007 and 2014. So this, the middle of the country was not hit as hard, but there are definitely hot spots in the Southwest. Florida is a huge hot spot. Atlanta there, I know where, so those are two places where I know Jim and Pam are based. And then up in the Rust Belt, too, you see some more hot spots. So if we look at the next slide, we can get a little more specifics on some of these hot spots. When we look at just the sheer numbers of these potential Boomerang buyers, Phoenix is the metro area with the most, over 348,000. And then Miami, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Inland Empire in California, and then even Los Angeles, are all over 250,000, over 250,000 people who lost their homes to foreclosure or short sale in each of these markets that over the next 7 to 8 years will be qualifying again to buy, and maybe already do qualify. So the way I'm looking at this is we're making a case that boomerang buyers are going to come back to the market. There's some arguments against it, but I think these numbers are very powerful if you look at this from almost from a court case perspective. Do these boomerang buyers have motive? Do they have opportunity? And do they have the means? We're trying to prove if these boomerang buyers are going to come back. And this is the motive part. This is showing that there are a lot of people who at one point were motivated to be homeowners and who lost their home. Another piece of the motive is that there's, in some of these metro areas, there's a very high percentage of these former homeowners. They've shown the motivation to be homeowners in the past. We think that certainly not all of them, but many of them will want to be homeowners again. Las Vegas, when you look at it as a percentage of housing units, has the highest. It's astounding. 26% of all housing units in Las Vegas were either lost to foreclosure or short sale during the last 7 years, which is just crazy. And then you have some of the inland California markets with a high percentage. Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, which I know that's where the president went to talk about the housing crisis a few years back. Phoenix, other California markets, and Detroit are some of the hot spots when we look at this as just a share of people who were affected by this crisis. And then the next slide talks about opportunity. So we have the motive. The opportunity we looked at through the prism of where's the generation who is most affected by the housing crisis? Where are they moving to? And because if they lost their home and then they move to another market, they're not going to be boomerang buyers in the original market. They're going to be boomerang buyers in the new market that they move to. And so this is just looking at census data to see where the Gen Xers and also baby boomers, and those are the two generations we believe are most affected by the housing crisis and who lost their homes in the greatest numbers, where they're moving to. And because boomerang buyers are in there, there's a lot of people moving to places like South Carolina and Florida, I think potentially looking for a retirement location to go to. And so this is the opportunity in these markets. And then the next slide shows the means, which I think this is really important because if you have the motivation and the opportunity, you still need the means. Homes have to be affordable in a market for us to believe that the boomerang buyers are going to return. And so we looked at affordability too. These are the markets just across the country that are the most affordable. The percentage here is looking at the percentage of median income it takes to buy a medium-priced home. And places like Syracuse, New York, Youngstown, Ohio, Rockford, Illinois, a lot of the middle America markets, not surprisingly, are the most affordable. So if you combine all of these three elements and look at the next slide, this is the money slide. This is where we, combining all three of those elements, motive, opportunity, and means, we looked at the markets we think that are most likely to see boomerang buyers come back in force. And these are places that have, a high percentage of these potential boomerang buyers, places like Las Vegas, which is at the top of the list. But not only that, there are places where the baby boomers and the Gen Xers have not moved out of in large numbers. Their population has at least held steady or even gone up. And then finally, these are all places where the median price of a home requires 28% or less of the median income. So we consider them very affordable markets. So the list we end up with is a lot of the hot spots that were hit hard by foreclosure, like Las Vegas and Cape Coral, Florida, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Greeley, Colorado. Then you see also some spots that were surprising to me, places like Fayetteville, Arkansas, which was pretty hard hit but didn't get a lot of press, Des Moines, Iowa, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, Tulsa, Oklahoma, places like that where they were hit fairly hard. There was a lot of folks who lost their homes, but now they are still very affordable markets, and so we think it's most likely that the boomerang buyers will return in these markets. And so that's what we we have to say with our data analysis, and you can go to realtytrack.com/news to get the full report we have on this boomerang buyer analysis of markets nationwide. So I'll hand it back to you, Jim and Pam.
Darren, here's a question. Doesn't RealtyTrack have a database of where short sellers have moved to?
Yes. All this analysis is based on actual address-level data that we have of foreclosures, and then we also track, if someone enters in foreclosure, we do what's called an NCOA, a National Change of Address check on the homeowner, so we actually know where they're moving, which I didn't even get into that with this analysis, but we do have that data, and we have a lot of agents who are understanding that these boomerang buyers are a big part of the market health going forward. I would argue this is bigger than the millennials that everybody is talking about. You can go in and contact our data solutions team, and they can create you a custom list of boomerang buyers in whatever market you're looking for, and also where they moved to. Not just where they were when they were foreclosed, but also where they moved to, so you can contact them to see if they're interested in becoming a homeowner again.
Darren, thanks. Wonderful information. So now we know the numbers of people who have been through this process. We know where the buyers can be found, but there's still a problem with their credit for the boomerang buyers, and specifically those who had a short sale, and their credit shows that they have a foreclosure on a conventional loan. Now, it looks like Fannie Mae has addressed this issue and amended their desktop underwriter originator system. There's still discrepancies that cause new mortgage denials, and it seems to take a considerable amount of time to get these corrected.
That is why we have Terry Clemens, the Executive Director of the National Consumer Reporting Association, on the webinar today. Terry, could you tell folks what the NCRA is and why the Qualified Mortgage Credit Report might be a solution to the problematic foreclosure code on past short seller credit?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pam and Jim, and Darren, great information. Thank you for that presentation. The National Consumer Reporting Association is a national trade association for the housing industry, for background checks and credit reports for all types of housing decisions. The NCRA member is the specialized consumer reporting agency that provides mortgage credit reports and background checks for rental decisions. So anything about making a housing decision, the creditworthiness of the applicant, whether it's to buy a home or to rent an apartment, our members provide that type of data. By representation, about 70% of the mortgage credit reporting agencies in the United States are members of NCRA, and the vast majority of the credit reports issued for housing decisions comes from NCRA members. Housing decisions, specifically for mortgage transactions, require the use of all three national credit bureaus. So the data from all three bureaus is combined into one specialized report. It's NCRA members that provide these types of specialty credit reports, and that's what our association does. We represent this group. One of our newest ideas that we're here to talk about is on the next slide. The QMCR is a new concept in mortgage credit reporting. And when I say concept, this is a report in concept only. The technology is all there, but you can't buy this product today. And what this does is it utilizes the very best elements of all the systems that were in use over the years, eliminates some of the repetitive and inefficient parts of the system, and comes up with a brand new process, picking and choosing what in the rearview mirror worked well, what didn't work so well, and what do we need to do to make the system work better going forward in the future. That's what the QMCR is. We'll go into the most important part of the QMCR, a very unique concept. We're talking about a consumer's credit data, so let's use a data-driven product. Credit reports are all data. And not every consumer's credit is the same, as you guys know. Most credit scores range from around 350 or 400 to 850 or 900. So there's a lot of variation there. We believe the best scenario is to let the consumer's specific credit details dictate the level of credit investigation that is required to get to the bottom line of their actual credit risk, so that in a risk-based pricing scenario, they can be properly priced, approved or denied on that risk. No one size fits all. Pull 3 bureaus, throw out the high and low, and underwrite with the middle, regardless of what they say. The QMCR process sets an investigation practice that's triggered, again, based off of the consumer's specific credit details. And we start with the process the way it is now. You start with the traditional 3-bureau merge, the tri-merge credit report that everyone uses for mortgage, and then you take a look at the credit in a completely automated fashion like we do now. So you're pulling 3 bureaus, merging them together, but you analyze this immediately for a very simple 2-step process, starting off with the current analysis of pulling 3, throwing out the high and low, and looking at the middle. Only instead of throwing out the high and low, let's use that as a trigger. If what you're throwing out is more than 25 points apart, and the middle score you're going to underwrite with, if that is something that the lender is saying, hey, you know what, this is not acceptable for my best rate. So they're charging for risk, the consumer's digging in deeper to their pocket, you're triggering risk-based score disclosures as required by the federal government because you're charging more. At that point, let's start layering in some additional verifications and some additional processes. Some of them are totally automated. Some of them are looking at those 2 files that are being discarded currently and saying, okay, if there's more than a 25-point spread here, is there a simple, easily identifiable reason for that 25-point discrepancy? The QMCR, Qualified Mortgage Credit Report, and the QMCR score would provide a deeper review into the consumer's credit history that's formula-based, that would include verifying disputed data, that would include the alternative or non-traditional data that is out there now but is not in the scoring process and requires manual underwriting if you're going through the GSEs. And it takes it out of the LO, the lender's hand, puts it directly into the third-party hand of the consumer reporting agency, whose only fiduciary responsibility is making sure that report is as thorough and accurate as possible for both the consumer and the lender. They get paid the same whether the loan's approved or denied. So they're the one that is truly non-influenced in the process and only wants the report to be complete, thorough, and right. This saves money, avoids conflicts, because you're only going to investigate what is truly needed. We're working with everybody in the process to change the political environment to get this into place. Rescoring a trade line to get it corrected and updated is more costly than doing a correction via a QMCR process. Accounts that have been short-saled or other items that have been disputed, if they get a dispute put on there, Fannie and Freddie won't approve this loan until it's been corrected and had that dispute removed. We rescore a lot of those, and there's been just some recent changes to that process to make it even work better with some of the changes by one of the 3 national credit bureaus. So that's something that is available to help speed up this process and is especially helpful to a lot of people who have had disputes put on their short sale because they were incorrectly interpreted as foreclosures. Alternative credit. That's out there now. That can be documented by the credit reporting agency. The consumer can do this themselves, and we always recommend they check their credit report annually on annualcreditreport.com. But if they get into the mortgage process and find something that they weren't expecting, that they don't believe is accurate, they can either do it themselves for free, or they can hire the mortgage credit reporting agency to do a rescore.
Terry, it sounds like the QMCR is a viable option to ensure that credit is accurate and that consumers get the best pricing for their loan. Thanks for your information.
So now we're seeing a volume of Boomerang buyers that are going to come back to the market, 7.3 million within the next 8 years. And this is just a sampling of why credit reporting agencies need to be included to assist with the inaccuracies on everyone's reports, and why the mortgage industry needs this QMCR to be accepted by Fannie and Freddie. First, create a niche market. There are tons of buyers, but knowing how to assist Boomerang buyers just elevated your net worth as an originator. 500,000 Boomerang buyers are eligible to repurchase in 2015. From 2016 through 2019, over 1 million Boomerang buyers are projected to come back into the housing market each year, resulting in more mortgage dollars to those originators that stay connected with the Boomerang buyers, and especially in the hardest hit areas of the country. Assisting this segment of the industry helps grow the housing economy. Pam, can you tell us about the website housingcrisisstories.com?
Yes, the site's first objective is to help the affected homeowners, the Boomerang buyers that are coming back into the market, the homeowners that continue to stay in an underwater property and any help we can find for them, and then direction for those that may have to exit an underwater home in the future. Additionally, there is direction for loan officers, where we show them how to dig and document, with documentation on what extenuating circumstances are for each loan type, and how to apply the current foreclosure code fixes that have stopped so many eligible past short sellers from getting a new mortgage again. We've even got examples of credit discrepancies to show why there is interest in a more accurate credit idea, like the QMCR. And we even have a tab for realty track data, because so much of their information distinguishes different data for short sales and foreclosures, not always apparent in other housing data. There's also a help network where those that see the value of assisting Boomerang buyers back into the housing market, or have refinance programs or other help for distressed homeowners that can stay put in their homes, these lenders, loan originators, credit reporting agencies, HUD-approved counselors, even PMI companies and governmental agencies that can provide help will be promoted for free on this site. Consumers in need of help will be able to find supportive companies, people, and agencies on a national map and on a state-by-state matrix. And finally, housingcrisisstories.com serves as a place for those who have lost their home during the housing crisis to tell their story. In working with hundreds affected over the last 4 years, the hardest thing to do has been getting these folks to tell the real story. Getting to the root of the problem or the true hardship has been the hardest task for many, and it's an emotional roller coaster, with many not wanting to revisit that time again. An option to provide these real stories through a simple YouTube video or a written letter is of great importance, and only a first name, city, and state is needed for a signature. The stories will help us in the mortgage industry explain real hardship to underwriters and assist these Boomerang buyers back into the housing market. So now you've got an idea of the volume of Boomerang buyers. 7.3 million who will re-enter the housing market over the next 8 years. You've heard about a new concept, the Qualified Mortgage Credit Report, that can clear up persistent credit problems that will hamper the re-entry of Boomerang buyers and even other consumers who need these credit items corrected once and for all. You've heard about the housingcrisisstories.com website, made to help Boomerang buyers and distressed homeowners. You've heard that this site also helps loan officers who want to assist Boomerang buyers back into housing, and that there is a help network on the site to promote for free those who can assist Boomerang buyers and even the 7.1 million distressed homeowners who greatly need refinance options to stay put. Beverly, thank you to the National Mortgage Professional Magazine and the Mortgage News Network for helping us to promote solutions found over the last 2 years.
Well, it's definitely our pleasure, Pam, and we want to thank Darren, Jim, Pam, and Terry for all of the great information presented in this webinar. And if you have any questions about this topic or you want some more information, you can view the contact information for all of our presenters on the screen. And thank you for watching our webinar. Hope you have a great rest of the day.